Welcome to Quest Tales. Here we journey beyond the veil of the ordinary into lands where magic breathes, swords sing, and ancient secrets wait to be uncovered. If you love fantasy, folklore, and the thrill of a well-told tale, you've found your sanctuary. So sit back, relax, and let the world outside fade away. The Lost Quest of Sir Cedric the Bold, Part 1. Sir Cedric of Elmsbridge, the kingdom's last knight, had once been the spark of a legend. His sword had cleaved through countless enemies, his shield had borne the weight of kingdoms, and his name had been sung in taverns, recited in royal courts, and etched into the stones of war memorials. He was a hero, a warrior unmatched in strength, courage, and honor. At least, that's how the stories went. In truth, Cedric could hardly recognize the man the songs described. Glory had become a mask he wore on the battlefield, a mask that now felt unbearably heavy. It weighed more than his armor, more than the sword at his side. And when the call came from King Aldric, his childhood friend turned ruler, to slay the dragon, Tharagon, Cedric felt only a sense of inevitability, not excitement. The kingdom of Elmsbridge had not known peace in years. Tharagon, a black-winged terror, had ravaged the nearby valley of Meromere, turning it to ruin. Villages were reduced to smoking foundations. Fields once ripe with grain now lay barren. The king could no longer sit idly by, and so Cedric, the last knight of Elmsbridge, was sent to deal with the beast. "Slay the beast, Sir Cedric," the king commanded, his voice edged with desperation, "and your name will live forever." Cedric had nodded in silence. What else could he do? It was his duty, and it had always been. But as he rode towards the distant peaks of Dragon's Crag, the place where Tharagon had made his lair, Cedric could not shake the feeling that something about this quest was different. The weight of his past, the wars he had fought, the lives he had taken, all of it began to press upon him with a new force. He had never doubted his cause before, but now, for the first time, he found himself wondering if there was something more to this story than what the king had told him. The journey to the Dragon's Crag was long, and the air grew colder with each passing day. Cedric rode alone, as knights often did in the old tales. He passed through desolate villages. There remains nothing more than broken walls and charred earth. The people had fled long before his arrival. The few that remained only spoke of the dragon in hushed tones, terrified, but never offering more than rumors and fearful glances. Some said Tharagon had come from the mountains, a creature of pure evil, bent on destruction. Others whispered that he was the last of his kind, a beast driven mad by grief and rage. It didn't matter to Cedric. He had seen dragons before, in battle and in stories. Creatures of fire and fury, with claws that could tear through steel and breath that could scorch entire towns. He had no room for sympathy. His mission was simple: end the threat and return home. As he neared the base of the crag, the ground became rough and uneven, the paths narrowing into dangerous cliffs. The air was thick with mist, and the occasional rumble of thunder could be heard in the distance. The wind howled through the craggy cliffs, sending a chill through Cedric's bones as he made his way higher. The journey had been grueling, but now, as he stood at the foot of the final climb, he felt something else, a sense of purpose. He was here to do what had to be done. At the peak, he saw the dragon's lair, a massive, jagged formation of rock, blackened by soot and fire. And there, atop the stone throne that seemed to have been carved by the gods themselves, lay Tharagon. The dragon was enormous, easily twice the size of any creature Cedric had faced in his long career. His wings, once vast and powerful, were now folded tightly against his back, and his body was draped across the rocks like some ancient beast fallen from grace. His scales were the color of midnight, and his eyes, one glowing faintly with a dim gold, watched Cedric approach without the slightest hint of fear or aggression. Cedric felt his heart race, not from fear, but from the sheer size of the creature before him. The dragon's presence was suffocating, like standing before an elemental force. But even as he took a step forward, sword in hand, Something tugged at him. Question. Hesitation. He could feel the dragon's gaze on him. Not the feral, hungry look of a predator, but something deeper. It was almost expectant. Tharagon's voice broke the silence, low and rumbling. "You have come to kill me, knight." Cedric's grip tightened on his sword. "Yes." "You are the fourth in a week," the dragon said, his voice laced with weariness. "Tell me, knight, why should I fear you any more than the others?" Cedric's brow furrowed. "Others?" Tharagon's eyes glowed brighter, but there was no malice in them, only a cold, ancient sadness. "Do you not see? I am not the first to be hunted. I am the last of my kind, driven to this desolation." Cedric hesitated. "That is not my concern. The king demands your death." "The king?" The dragon mused, his gaze turning distant. "And all those who think themselves masters of this land. What would you know of kings, knight? What would you know of those who send men to die and call it duty?" Cedric's face hardened, but doubt crept in like a shadow. He had heard of such creatures before, in legends. Dragons who were not mindless beasts, but ancient beings with their own stories, their own sorrows. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the task at hand. "I'm not here to discuss philosophy, dragon," Cedric said, raising his sword. "I'm here to end your reign of terror." The dragon's gaze did not change, but something flickered behind his golden eyes. A brief spark of something that wasn't just hunger. It was almost as if the beast was waiting. "Then strike, knight," Tharagon said softly, almost as if inviting him. "But remember, death comes for us all, and for some of us it is not a matter of choice." Cedric's sword hung in the air, trembling slightly, as if unsure. But he knew his duty. He knew his path. With a shout, he charged forward. The battle was swift, but it was not what Cedric expected. He had faced many beasts before, from ogres to wyverns to wild men, but Tharagon was different. His movements were slow, deliberate, but there was power in every gesture. The dragon's breath was not fire, but a searing heat that made the air shimmer. The strength behind each swipe of his claw shook the very earth beneath Cedric's feet. But it was not the dragon's power that unsettled Cedric. It was the silence between them. The way Tharagon did not attack with fury, but with restraint. Each strike felt measured, almost as if the dragon were testing Cedric rather than fighting him in earnest. "Is this really what I'm here for?" Cedric thought, the weight of the sword in his hand suddenly feeling like a heavy chain. With every clash, the knight found himself asking, "Is the beast holding back?" But before he could dwell further, the moment of doubt passed. The dragon roared, and the world erupted in fire. Cedric's sword clashed with the dragon's scales, sparks flying as metal met stone. Tharagon's massive claws scraped across the rocks, his breath hot and heavy, filling the air with a stench of sulfur. The battle was brutal, but Cedric's mind was elsewhere. His sword felt heavier with every strike, and the burning heat of the dragon's breath made the air feel thick and suffocating. Tharagon's roar echoed through the crag, rattling the stones, yet Cedric did not flinch. The dragon was not charging with the wrath of a beast bent on slaughter. There was no wild, frenzied rage. It was as though Tharagon was holding back, testing the knight's resolve. Why? Cedric struck again, his sword biting into the dragon's thick hide, but Tharagon barely moved. He looked at Cedric with an expression that was neither angry nor fearful, only resigned. "You think yourself a hero, don't you, knight?" Tharagon rumbled, his voice deep as the earth itself. "A man with a sword called to kill a monster. I have heard this story before." Cedric's brow furrowed as he circled. trying to catch his breath. The dragon was slow, too slow to land a decisive blow, but it was also calculating and cautious. "I am no hero," Cedric said, his voice grim. "I am a knight. I do what is required of me." "Required?" the dragon scoffed, the word dripping with bitterness. "By whom? Your king? Your people? Your honor?" The question struck Cedric like a physical blow. He paused, just for a moment, but it was long enough for Tharagon to lash out. The dragon's tail whipped across the ground, sending a gust of wind that knocked Cedric off balance. He stumbled back, barely avoiding the swipe of Tharagon's claws. As Cedric regained his footing, he could hear the dragon's heavy breathing, each exhale rattling the rocks beneath his feet. "What if there was no honor in this? What if your king is not a man of justice, but of fear? What if the people you fight for have forgotten what it means to be truly free?" Tharagon continued, his golden eyes glinting in the fading light. Cedric's sword wavered. The dragon's word hit him harder than any blow. "You ask me what is required of me," Cedric said, his voice tight with anger. "I am here to protect my kingdom, to defend it from the threat you pose." "A threat?" Tharagon's laughter was a low rumble, almost sorrowful. "What if you are the true threat, knight? What if it is the people you protect who have built their lives on lies?" Cedric hesitated. For the first time, doubt gnawed at him, creeping into his thoughts like a slow poison. He had never questioned his mission before, but now, in the face of the dragon's calm, almost sorrowful demeanor, the edges of his resolve began to blur. "I don't know what you mean," Cedric said, his voice faltering. "I only know that I must kill you, or the king will send more men to try." The dragon's eyes softened, just for a moment, before the hardness returned. "Do you know what it means to truly live, knight? To not be a puppet to a kingdom that sees you only as a tool to wield and then discard. I once knew what it was like to live freely, to be something more than a weapon." Cedric's grip tightened on his sword, but it was not the anger he had expected. It was a strange, uncomfortable feeling, a tug of empathy. Tharagon's head lowered slightly, his gaze focused on the night. "You don't know the truth. You think you do, but you don't. You haven't even begun to understand the cost of your duty." The words stung. For the first time, Cedric questioned everything he had been taught. Was this the truth? Was Tharagon a monster? Or was he something else entirely? That's it for today's story. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this tale, go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this one. Tap the bell so you never miss an upload, and if you have thoughts, theories, or just want to say hello, drop a comment below and I'd love to talk to you. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring those forgotten places. See you in the next one.